So today I'll do a real quick video on the Grumichamas. That's Eugenia brasiliensis, the Grumichama. To me, the Grumichama represents a wonderful fruit tree that kind of could compete with the blueberry, I guess. You know, if you can grow jabuticaba, you can grow Grumichama. The Grumichama, I think, has a higher degree of cold tolerance. Comes from Brazil, comes from regions, the Atlantic forest, some other, Rio de Janeiro, some other places I don't know how to pronounce. It's got a decent distribution throughout Brazil. It's not throughout the whole country, but it is got varieties of it now. There's one that's called ooh, that cut on my forehead's nice. I slashed my forehead on a piece of plexi, one of the chicken coops. It looks good today in that sunlight. Anyway, let's flip this around and show you some of these varieties. These are ones that I just recently planted. They're about 2.5, 3 years old by now. This is the variety called Erythrocarpa, or the red Grumichama. Now, I was just reading up on it and brushing up on my insight as to what this tree can do. And I hear it's a dwarf, not a dwarf, but a shrubbier variety. And in the book, it says it only gets about 2 to 4 meters, where the typical variety of Grumichama would get closer to, I think it said 8 to 15 meters or something like that. So the regular Grumichama can get to be, 40 feet tall in Brazil. And in Florida, I've never seen one that big, but I imagine it get over 25 feet tall easily. This one is another variety that's very close to my heart. I like this one a lot. It's the yellow, or Eugenia brasiliensis variety, Leucocarpa, Leucocarpa, I believe, Leucocarpa. Yellow variety of Grumichama. These things handle down to 25 degrees by me. They can fruit in part shade, full sunlight, or part shade. The deeper the shade, the less fruit you'll get. I like to plant mine on the south side of a big tree. This is a big oak tree I put mine on the south side of. This one's fruited quite well for me. They fruit from seed in about 3 years. Sometimes can take longer, up to 5 years. This one's starting to touch that oak tree. I might have to trim the oak tree back. The fruit on the yellow get nice and big. Ooh, these get nice sized and they're delicious. I've noticed with some of the common varieties, like the black ones, just the regular Eugenia brasiliensis, they can be like mealy. I mean, really not worth eating. The texture really does them no justice sometimes. And I've noticed the yellows, in my opinion, are typically better than most of the regular black ones I've had. That's not to say that all the black ones are bad, but I've gone to a nursery and tasted the black ones that were just disgusting, mealy. But these are good. The yellows are delicious. I've had good blacks too. They all taste about the same, the blacks and the yellows that I've had, but it's really a texture type of thing, where I like the yellows a lot. I don't have the typical black one here fruiting that I know of. I may have one planted out that I forgot about, but I went and collected the varieties. So there's your yellow, Leucocarpa, and then these are your reds, Erythrocarpa, E-R-Y, oh gosh, you're gonna mess me up on this, E-R-Y-T-H-R-O-C-A-R-P-A, something like that. Erythrocarpa, red. Grumichama, vermelha is how you say it, not vermelha. Vermelha. Did I get it right? Grumichama vermelha. And these are them right here. I got these from a collector in another place. He sent me the seeds. Thank you very much. They can take wet. They can take a little bit of drought, but not a lot. They would really prefer have some water, but they take some dry if you let them get dry for a little bit. Heat is no big deal. These have taken 100 degrees or more, so they can take the heat. They're really tough trees. You can fruit them in containers. You can prune them back because they fruit on the new wood. So I'm just walking you through and showing you my reds one more time. I planted a bunch of the reds out because I heard really good things about them and they're hard to get. So once they start to fruit, I'll start to graft from my reds, but they haven't started to fruit yet. So another one of the reds I have planted out, and another one of the reds I have planted out. So you see, I planted out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the reds. Grumichama. Oh, and let's take you over to its close relative. I'm glad I remembered to tell you about the dwarf Grumichama. This is another species from the Rio de Janeiro, I believe. It's got a more specific range. It's not as widely distributed as the Grumichama. Smaller tree, fruits quick, 3 years, typically just 3 years, not any much longer. Really strong tree, can take all the same conditions as the Grumichama, maybe even stronger, I don't know. They're very strong. And I've had them planted out in some brutal conditions. They fruit a couple times per year. I think they may fruit a little more than the Grumichama at my location. They'll fruit kind of like, they do one nice crop and then sometimes another sparse one. This one looks a little ratty. You see, when they start to get unhappy, you'll know it because they'll have the lichens growing on them at my house. That means they're not getting enough time to peel, or they didn't get enough fertilizer, or they were too hot, too dry, too wet, something. But they come right out of it. Look at that growth. It still looks good. Still hanging in there. These are strong, strong trees. And I'm probably going to fertilize this one. And look at this one over here. Now, that was the one in the hottest position. See, the ones in the part shade do a little better, but there's your dwarf, Grumichama. Grumichama mirim or something like that. I forget the name. Or Anna, something like that. Nana, something. I forget anymore, but I know the botanical name. Eugenia itaguahiensis. Itaguahiensis. I know that one. Itaguahiensis. And I've grafted this onto the regular Grumichama. The fruit is not quite as sweet as the regular Grumichama, but the tree's very pretty. It leaves like a fake pink flower. Okay, after you get the flower to come, the fruit sets. And then you have the, I think it would be the calyces, like the calyx of the flower is persistent, and it leaves a pink calyx that looks, like a flower. So you have like a white bloom and then a false pink bloom afterwards, with the calyces looking really pretty on these trees, on the fruit that's set. Small tree, ornamental, fruit not as sweet as the typical Grumichama, but still very good. I say they're good fruit. They really are, but not going to be the sweetest fruit in the world. You can let them get shriveled up and start to turn like a raisin, and they do get pretty sweet. So I've let them shrivel up before and dry up, and they taste quite good. Sweeter, but not really sweet. Almost looks like a cocoa plum if you didn't know any better. If you just saw that, it looks like this Florida native we call a cocoa plum. But man, these things are strong. So that's the dwarf Grumichama, which is another species entirely. Look at all these Grumichamas out here. Eugenia brasiliensis, wonderful fruit tree. Can grow them in the shade, can take heat, likes humidity, needs some humidity. So if you're in Arizona, California, consider the humidity for a fruit set and good foliage production and all that kind of stuff. Wonderful fruit tree. Grow them in a pot, grow them in a greenhouse. Prune them back if you need to. They fruit on the new wood. Y'all have a wonderful day. And there's more varieties out here that I haven't told you about. Before I go, I'll tell you one more thing. There was a guy that had a nursery called Trees and More Nursery, and I think he was in like the Palm Beach area, something like that. And he had an orange one, which I think was just the Leucocarpa, the yellow that had a little more pigment. They would turn orange, and they were right next to a yellow, and it was, it was consistent throughout the tree. I wanted to graft it and get cuttings from it, but I never did. It was a good fruit. It tastes just like the yellow. The yellows taste just like the blacks. It's a texture thing where the yellows have a little bit better of a texture to me, and a large fruit, man, they got some big fruits on the yellows. But then I've seen blacks that were really big. Yeah, over at Toppy's, he's got a black Grumichama, fruiting real nice, big fruit, but gets loaded with flies, and the texture's mealy, and it's full of seed, big black fruit. Nothing I'd want to plant, maybe for rootstock though. Must have been some of the older genetics he got. Anyhow, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it about these Grumichamas. I'm gonna start to offer them grafted a little more. I really enjoy the fruit, and I think more people should be growing them, and it's just something I do graft, and I just hadn't been keeping up. There's so many things to graft. What you gonna pick? Pick one. Better be a good one. So we're waiting on these reds, these Erythrocarpas to fruit. Once they do, buddy, you're gonna hear about it. I'll put you a taste review, and I'll do all that. The Grumichamas only seem to fruit about once a year, and that would be in the springtime, right after winter. Sometimes you get a little mild crop afterwards, but not usually. Anyway, I'm throwing in all these details last minute. Let's show you some chickens on the way out. They came and found me. They heard me talking trash about these Grumichamas and said, "Boy, get out my grove and talking about them Grumichamas in front of that grafted Eugenia Calycina that got left out of the video. Over here next to that Plenia oblongata that just got planted out that you didn't want to tell nobody about in my darn video, boy. Boy." See, I got him to look. That's a sign. That's a gang call. There's my girl Billy. In the middle, okay, from right to left, you got Billy, Joe Pesci, and Pinky. That's Larry, and then that's Resurrection Chicken, Maryland, or Resurrection Chicken, man. Growling on y'all, man. We out here. All right, y'all.